Before my grandfather even cut the cake that night, he asked me something that made my entire world tilt. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Show me how you've used your $3 million trust fund." My voice broke as I whispered the truth. I never got one. Right then, his lawyer placed a stack of statements on the table, and my parents almost collapsed. If family secrets scare you more than strangers do, don't watch this alone. And if you haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself why you always wait until it's too late. I stood in that room holding a truth I never asked for. My birthday candles glowed softly, but nothing felt warm. My parents avoided my eyes. My hands were trembling. I wasn't shocked because of the money. I was shattered because they let me grow up believing we were barely surviving. That night felt like a wound disguised as a celebration. Do you know what it feels like to realize your entire childhood was a performance? That every time you asked for something small, something normal, you were made to feel like a burden? Like your existence was draining the life out of people who were supposed to protect you? That's what that moment was. Standing there with cake and candles and a room full of people pretending everything was fine, while my insides were screaming. While my brain was trying to rewrite 20 years of memories, trying to figure out which parts were real and which parts were just another layer of the lie. I couldn't breathe right. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped steel bands around my ribs and was pulling them tighter with every second that passed. My grandfather was still looking at me, waiting for an answer that I didn't have. The lawyer, this stranger in an expensive suit, was more informed about my life than I was. He knew things about me that I didn't even know about myself. And my parents, they just sat there, frozen.
Guilty. Caught.
If you've ever had to smile through pain caused by people you trusted, whisper, "I get it." And if you're watching without subscribing, tell me, what's holding you back? Looking back, the signs were always there. My parents acted like every small request drained the family. A pair of school shoes turned into a lecture. A field trip became an argument. They treated money like a monster living in the house. But it wasn't just about money, was it? It was about control. It was about making me feel small enough that I'd never ask questions. Making me feel grateful for crumbs while they feasted on what was mine. I remember being 8 years old, watching other kids get dropped off at school in clean clothes, with lunch boxes that weren't held together with tape. I remember my mother sighing, actually sighing, when I mentioned that my backpack had a hole in it. Like I'd asked for something extravagant. Like wanting a backpack that could hold my books without them falling through was some kind of luxury request. "We'll see," she'd say. And "we'll see" always meant no. It always meant stop asking. Stop needing. Stop existing so loudly. I learned to make myself smaller. I learned to apologize for being hungry. I learned to hide when my shoes had holes in them, to walk in a way that wouldn't let anyone see the cardboard I'd stuffed inside to cover the worn-out soles. I learned that my needs were an inconvenience, that my existence was expensive, that love came with a price tag I could never afford to pay. And yet, my grandfather always tried to give me something different, hope. Whenever he visited, he hugged me just a little longer, as if he knew one day I'd need strength to face something dark. He'd slip me $20 sometimes, just folded up small in my hand during a hug, quiet like our secret. And my mother would find out somehow. She always found out, and there'd be this look on her face. Not gratitude that her child had been given something. Not relief. Just this tight-lipped anger, like he'd crossed some invisible line. "You don't need to do that," she'd tell him, her voice sharp enough to cut. "We provide for our child just fine." But we both knew that was a lie. He knew it. I knew it. Maybe even she knew it, somewhere under all that pride and pretense. My grandfather would just nod, smile that sad smile of his, and change the subject. But I'd catch him looking at me sometimes when he thought no one was watching. Really looking. Like he was trying to memorize my face, or like he was searching for something he'd lost. I never understood that look until that night. Until everything came crashing down, and I realized he'd been carrying this knowledge, this terrible, heavy knowledge for years. He knew what they were doing. He knew, and he'd been trying to protect me in the only ways he could. Small acts of kindness. Longer hugs. $20 bills pressed into my palm like lifelines. But I never imagined the darkness would come from the two people I loved most. How could I? They were my parents. They were supposed to be the safe place. They were supposed to be the people who'd go without so I could have. Isn't that what parents do? Isn't that what love looks like? Apparently not. Apparently, love can look like lies stacked on top of lies until you can't see the truth anymore. Love can look like making your child feel guilty for needing basic things while you drain their future dry. Love can look like betrayal so deep, so complete, that even years later you're still finding new layers of it. If you ever felt guilty for needing basic things growing up, drop a comment so we stand together. And if you're still watching quietly, subscribe before this story hits a nerve you're not ready for. When Grandpa asked about the trust fund, I thought he was mistaken. I actually laughed, this nervous, confused laugh, because the idea was so absurd.
Me?
A trust fund? We could barely afford groceries. We lived in a house where the heat got turned down so low in winter that I could see my breath in my bedroom. Where going out to eat meant the dollar menu and splitting an order of fries 3 ways. A trust fund was something rich kids had. Kids with parents who drove new cars and took vacations and didn't have shouting matches about the electric bill every month. It wasn't something that belonged to me. But when I said, I never got one, the room froze. The temperature dropped. That's what it felt like. Like someone had opened a door to winter and let all the cold rush in at once. Everyone stopped moving, stopped breathing. The moment crystallized into something sharp and terrible, something I knew I'd remember for the rest of my life. My mother grabbed her napkin, as if hiding behind it. My father stared at the table like the truth was too heavy to look at. And my grandfather just nodded. Like he'd been expecting this. Like he'd known this moment was coming and had been dreading it and preparing for it all at once. Then the lawyer placed the documents down. The sound of that folder hitting the table, I can still hear it. This soft thud that somehow felt louder than any scream. He opened it carefully, professionally, like he was revealing evidence at a trial. Which I guess he was. Page after page, withdrawals, transfers, forged signatures. My name, over and over again. My signature, except it wasn't my signature. It was close enough that if you didn't know better, you might think it was real. But I knew better. I knew I'd never signed these documents. I knew I'd never authorized these withdrawals. I knew because I'd never even known the money existed. $3 million. Set up by my grandfather when I was born. Meant for college, for starting my life, for having opportunities he never had. And instead, it became a piggy bank for 2 people who convinced their child she was poor while they lived off her future. And each one pulled me deeper into a reality I wasn't ready for. The numbers were staggering. $20,000 here for a car I never saw. $35,000 there for home improvements on a house that was still falling apart. $50,000 for a business investment that apparently never materialized. Small amounts scattered throughout, a few hundred here, a few thousand there, like they were just skimming off the top, taking a little bit at a time, so no one would notice. Except someone did notice. My grandfather noticed. And he'd been watching, keeping records, waiting for the right moment to expose what they'd done. They didn't struggle financially. They just let me struggle. That's the part that breaks me even now. It's not even about the money, not really. It's about the cruelty of it. The calculated, deliberate cruelty of looking her child in the eye while she apologizes for needing new shoes, while she skips meals so there's enough food for everyone, while she works 2 jobs in high school because she believes the lie that the family needs her to contribute. They let me believe we were drowning. They let me carry that weight, that guilt, that fear. They let me grow up thinking I was a burden, that my existence was too expensive, that I needed to earn my place in my own family. And the whole time they were spending my money. Money that wasn't even theirs. Money that was supposed to be my safety net, my future, my chance at something better. Would you have confronted them or walked out? Tell me in the comments. And if you don't subscribe, at least comment why. You're already here. My mother broke down instantly, crying loud enough for the neighbors to hear. The sound was almost animalistic, this wailing, gasping, theatrical display of emotion that might have worked on me a week ago. That might have made me rush to her side, apologize for whatever I'd done wrong, try to fix whatever was broken. But not anymore. Not after seeing those documents. Not after watching 20 years of my life rewrite itself in real time. My father blamed miscommunication. There's been a misunderstanding, he said, his voice this carefully controlled thing, like he was negotiating a business deal gone wrong. This isn't what it looks like. We can explain everything. But they couldn't explain. That's the thing about the truth. It doesn't need explanations. It just is. And the truth was right there in black and white, in statements and signatures and withdrawals that painted a picture so clear that no amount of words could blur it. They threw every excuse at the table, everything except honesty. My mother went from crying to angry in seconds. "How dare you ambush us like this?" she said to my grandfather, her voice shaking with rage. "On our child's birthday?
What kind of person does that?"
And I almost laughed. Almost. Because the audacity of it, the sheer, breathtaking audacity of trying to make herself the victim in this situation, was so absurd it bordered on impressive. My grandfather didn't take the bait. He just sat there, calm as stone, letting her rage wash over him like water. They claimed they borrowed the money.
Borrowed.
Like that word meant anything when you're taking from your own child. Like there was ever any intention of paying it back. Like borrowing without asking isn't just another word for stealing. "We're going to tell you," my father said, and even he didn't sound convinced. "When you were older, when you could understand." Understand what? I finally spoke, and my voice came out stronger than I expected. Understand that you stole from me? Understand that you lied to me every single day of my life? Understand that while I was working myself to exhaustion, you were living off money that belonged to me? My mother flinched like I'd hit her. "Don't use that tone with me," she said, but her voice was weak now, uncertain. "What tone should I use?" I asked. "The grateful one? The one where I thank you for teaching me to feel guilty for existing? The one where I apologize for finding out the truth?" They swore they planned to pay it back. But the numbers told a different story. The balance was barely half of what it should have been. $1.4 million. That's what was left of my $3 million trust fund. $1.4 million after years of withdrawals, after years of them treating it like their personal bank account. And even that remaining amount, it wasn't like they'd stopped. The most recent withdrawal was from 3 months ago. $15,000.
They were still doing it. Still taking.
Still lying. Still acting like what was mine was theirs to claim. Where did it go? I asked. Where did $1.6 million go? They didn't answer.
Couldn't answer.
Because the truth was too ugly, too selfish, too damning. It went to a lifestyle they couldn't afford. It went to keeping up appearances. It went to cars and vacations and renovations and investments that failed because they were made with stolen money, and maybe the universe has a way of balancing those scales. Grandpa didn't yell. He didn't need to. His silence was the loudest thing in the room. He just watched them squirm and cry and make excuses, watched them try to manipulate and gaslight and redirect. And his silence, his quiet, disappointed silence, said more than any speech ever could. It said, "I know who you are. I've always known who you are. And now everyone else knows too. If someone ever called you ungrateful for asking for the truth, type enough. And if you refuse to subscribe, say why. At least let your voice count for something." Weeks later, the consequences hit them harder than they expected. The lifestyle they built using my money didn't survive without it. Because that's the thing about living beyond your means. It only works as long as the money keeps flowing. And once that flow stops, once the tap turns off, everything comes crashing down. Bills piled up. Suddenly, the car payments they'd been making on a car bought with my money were too expensive. The credit cards they'd maxed out using my money to make minimum payments started demanding more than they could give. The house they'd renovated with my money needed repairs they couldn't afford. It was almost poetic, watching it all unravel, watching them face the reality they'd shielded themselves from for so long. The reality that they'd been living a lie, that their comfortable life was built on sand, that without my money propping them up, they were exactly as broke as they'd always pretended to be. Creditors started circling. Phone calls, letters, threats of repossession and legal action. All the things they'd protected themselves from by draining my future. All the consequences they deferred by stealing from their own child. And I watched it happen with a strange detachment, like I was observing someone else's life fall apart. Like this was a story I was reading instead of living. And then the call came, my mother asking if I could help them get back on track. The audacity, the sheer, unbelievable audacity of calling me, after everything they'd done, after everything they'd taken, after all the lies and manipulation and theft, and asking me for help. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice small and careful, like she was talking to a wild animal that might bolt. "I know things have been difficult. I know you're upset, but we're family, and family helps each other." Family. She actually used that word. After spending my entire life teaching me that family was something you had to earn, something you could lose if you weren't good enough, something that came with conditions and prices and endless debt. Now, suddenly, when she needed something, family was supposed to mean unconditional support. "We made mistakes," she continued, filling my silence with words. "We admit that. But we're your parents. We raised you. We loved you. That has to count for something. And maybe it would have once. Maybe the old me, the me from before that birthday dinner, would have found a way to forgive them, would have convinced myself that everyone makes mistakes, that love is complicated, that family is worth fighting for. But that version of me was gone. She died the night those documents hit the table. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply said, "I'm rebuilding the future you stole from me." The words came out calm, measured, final. "What does that mean?" she asked, and I could hear the panic creeping into her voice. "It means I'm done," I said. "I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done pretending that what you did was anything other than what it was: theft, betrayal, abuse." "Don't be dramatic," she said, and there it was, that dismissive tone I'd heard my whole life. That way of making my feelings small, my pain invalid, my reality negotiable. "I'm not being dramatic," I said. "I'm being honest. Maybe for the first time in my life, I'm being completely honest. You stole from me. You lied to me. You made me feel guilty for existing while you lived off my money. And now you want me to help you? Now you want me to save you from the consequences of your own choices. We're your parents. You were supposed to be my parents," I interrupted. Parents protect their children. Parents sacrifice for their children. Parents don't steal their children's futures and then play victim when they get caught. The silence on the other end felt like the balance finally shifting in my life. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her standing there, phone pressed to her ear, trying to figure out what to say, trying to find the right words to manipulate me back into compliance, back into being the child who apologized for needing things, who felt guilty for taking up space. But those words didn't exist. That child was gone. I have to go, I said. Wait. I hung up, and in the silence that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Maybe something I'd never felt at all.
Peace.
If your peace ever became your revenge, drop a comment. And subscribe before the next twist. Because real stories like this don't end where you expect. For years, I believed love meant sacrifice. I believed love meant making yourself smaller so other people could be bigger. I believed love meant swallowing your needs, your wants, your pain, your truth, so that other people could be comfortable. I believed that if I was just good enough, quiet enough, grateful enough, understanding enough, then maybe I'd finally be worthy of the love I'd been chasing my whole life. But I was chasing something that didn't exist. The love I wanted from them, unconditional, supportive, honest, wasn't something they were capable of giving. Maybe it never was. Now I know love isn't supposed to drain you. Real love fills you up. Real love makes you bigger, not smaller. Real love doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Real love doesn't steal from you and then make you feel guilty for noticing. It isn't supposed to hide what's yours. Every time they withdrew money from that account, they were stealing more than dollars. They were stealing possibilities, opportunities, choices,
Security.
They were stealing the future I could have had, a future where I went to college without crushing debt, where I started my adult life with a foundation instead of quicksand, where I didn't have to work myself to exhaustion just to survive. They stole time. They stole peace. They stole the version of myself who might have grown up feeling safe and loved and worthy. And for what? So they could have a nicer car? So they could take vacations? So they could maintain an image that no one was even fooled by? It isn't supposed to punish you for existing. That's what they did, though. Every lecture about money, every sigh when I needed something, every time they made me feel like a burden, that was punishment. Punishment for being born. Punishment for having needs. Punishment for being a child who required food and clothes and shelter and love. And the cruelest part? They were punishing me while spending my money. They were making me feel guilty for being expensive, while literally living off my wealth. I don't hate them anymore.
I did for a while.
After that night, after the truth came out, I felt this burning rage that consumed everything else. I'd lie awake at night imagining confrontations, imagining saying all the things I'd never said, imagining them finally understanding the magnitude of what they'd done. But hate is exhausting. Hate takes energy that I needed for rebuilding, for healing, for becoming the person I was supposed to be before they broke me. So I let it go. Not for them, for me. I just don't belong to their version of family. Their version of family is transactional. It's conditional. It's built on lies and manipulation and control. Their version of family means you're only worthy of love if you're useful, only deserving of care if you don't ask for too much, only allowed to stay if you play by rules that change whenever it's convenient for them. That's not family. That's a hostage situation. Real family, the kind I'm building now, the kind I'm choosing for myself, looks different. It's honest. It's reciprocal. It's safe. It's made up of people who celebrate your success instead of resenting it, who support your growth instead of stunting it, who love you not despite your needs, but including them. My peace finally started the moment I stopped trying to earn their honesty. Because you can't earn something from people who aren't willing to give it. You can't make someone be honest who's built their entire life on lies. You can't force people to see you as worthy when they need you to be worthless to justify what they've done. I spent so many years trying to be good enough, trying to be understanding enough, trying to be grateful enough, trying to earn what should have been freely given: basic honesty, basic respect, basic love. And the moment I stopped trying, the moment I accepted